Yo, peace to the gods, peace to the earths. No, I'm just joking. I remember back in the day, when we were studying the 5% doctrine, we used to say peace to the gods and peace to the earths. And and we would think that saying peace to the gods, like God was superior to the earth. Like I'm God, I'm bigger than the earth. But really, what I'm saying, when I got into spirituality and started studying metaphysics, I found out that nature is God. Nature is more superior. So the concept of the male figure or the male God or the patriarchal God is always going to be inferior to nature because Mother Nature is God. So those people that don't know anything about the 5% doctrine probably don't know what I'm talking about. But basically, the 5%ers are, they believe that they are God. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Even in Buddhism, I was talking to a close friend of mine. She was telling me that even in Buddhism, there's a concept of you being a god or you being one who is following God. And some people feel like they are following God or they're, submitting to God. And then some people take on the role of becoming God. And when you take on the role of becoming God, this is like taking responsibility for your actions, like taking total responsibility for your actions. So you got some people that feel like they are gods, and some people feel like they are just following God. So those are two ways to look at information, and that's very interesting or whatever. Because when you get into metaphysics, when you get into health, when you get into astrology, you can still flip it and become religious with it. Just because you're studying metaphysics and stuff like that doesn't mean that the information can't grab your mind and imprison your mind even into basically a trap to where it's religious now, to where you are submitting to the stars. You see, to where the stars determine your fate versus you creating your fate through the modality of the stars and through the hand that was dealt to you from the universe. So there's two ways to look at information, two ways to look at knowledge. And it's no different when you study the teachings of Atlantis. And that's what this video is about. This video is about the teachings of Atlantis. Some people study the teachings of Atlantis and they're looking for more of a historical thing. Like they're looking for basically history. And they don't believe in Atlantis because they're like, there's no history, there's no documented proof or history that Atlantis exists. And Atlantis is a very interesting topic or whatever. It's a very interesting concept because really to understand Atlantis, you're getting into understanding time. And I've talked about this before. I'm going to go more into it now. If you really want to understand Atlantis, you're understanding the creation of the dimensions and the creation of time here on this planet. Now, time is what you would call cyclic. So it's designed as a circle. Time is not linear. It's not a straight line. So when you say something like that, time is in a circle, this means that time is infinite. Time is infinite. So time is not finite. When you talk about something being infinite, this means that it's not finite. It's not a three-dimensional concept. It's a fourth dimensional concept. And time was created, believe it or not. Time was brought. The cycles of time and cycles in general were brought to this planet. There's different cycles. There's planetary cycles. There are cycles that our sun goes through. There are cycles that different stars go through. So when you start talking about cycles, you're talking about time. And when you talk about Atlantis, you are talking about the creation of time here on this planet. The bringing of history, celestial history, to the surface of this planet from the celestial sphere, and also the bringing of information from the terrestrial sphere to the surface of this planet. When you deal with Atlantis, you're dealing with a series of rays. You're dealing with a series of chords. You're dealing with celestial lights. You're dealing with portals. You're dealing with a grid. And this grid was basically set up so that we could bring time to this planet. When you even understand modern time, regular mundane time, man-made time, man-made time is still based upon a grid. It's still based upon a grid. There's different time zones throughout this grid. And this grid is based upon the sun traveling, rising and setting every day. And time is based upon the cycles of the sun. It's based upon the cycles of the sun, where it's no different when you look at time as a concept of man-made mundane time, it's no different with real time, because real time is not the time on a clock. The time on a clock goes by seconds. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. That's the time on a clock, and that goes by seconds, which is basically a concept that it's not perfect. It's not a perfected concept. Now, real time is dealing with celestial time, dealing with the lights, dealing with the rays, and dealing with light manifesting here on Earth. In order for light to manifest here on Earth, of course, you need motion. You need motion. So light travels at 186,000 miles per second. And you have different types of lights. You have different types of lights on the spectrum, and these lights resonate with the chakra systems in the human body differently. So when you to understand Atlantis, you have to understand the 7 rays, and some people say there's actually 13 rays, of which I won't go into here. And the 7 rays, or the 13 rays, however you want to look at it, are based on lords or bodies. So what the Atlanteans had to essentially do in the beginning is to be able to create this kingdom, to be able to create this civilization. They have to first be able to align certain structures here on the surface of the earth up with certain stars, and they have to do this without any tools. They didn't have any telescopes and things of that nature, so they had to use their third eye. And they basically would stare at a star and align their third eye with that particular star, the ray of that star. And when it was in perfect alignment with whatever star they were trying to channel through their third eye, when they could see it totally clearly, then they know that that was a place or a point where they would begin to build a certain structure. So it took a long time. The priests had to go and map out different sites on this planet to be able to build civilization and to be able to build the Atlantean civilization. Because the Atlantean civilization, believe it or not, is people limited, and they say Atlantis was an island, and they say it was in the Atlantic Ocean. You know, some people say it was in the Pacific Ocean, wherever you think it was at. Some people believe that it was just limited to an island. And people have to understand that the Atlantean system, an Atlantean priesthood, they were functioning on a global level, on like a global economy. So they had to basically bring civilization to the surface. So when you start studying about Atlantis, essentially there's different phases to it. There's different cycles to it. You can go all the way back as far as almost close to 100,000 years, believe it or not, when you get into Atlantis. But what I'm focusing on here is trying to lay down a foundation for you, because I know I'm going to have to do way more videos than just this one video on Atlantis to help to get you to understand what's going on in Atlantis. And these structures were totally aligned. These structures, on the planet, like pyramids, mounds, and different sacred sites, had to be totally aligned with different star constellations. And it was taught by the ancients that this alignment took place with 9 priests. 9 priests that came and were initiated from the galactic center during the time. And these 9 priests had to come and bring the information from the galactic center here to this planet, and to be able to cause the alignments so that Earth can be able to shift into higher dimensions. So there's different schools and different priests is what I'm pointing out here. So there's 9 priests, but each priest was given a certain area or a certain region of the Earth to be able to make these alignments with these structures. So say, for instance, one priest may have been given the Middle East. Another priest may have been given Ireland. Another priest may have been given Britain. Another priest may have been given South America. Another priest may have been given India. Another priest may have been given America or North America. So you have different priests or whatever that were spread out throughout the earth, and they had to be able to cause these structures to line up with various different star constellations so they can begin to channel time here to this planet through the celestial lights and the rays. Now, you're probably wondering, how in the heck does a structure, like what the heck can a structure, how can that channel anything? We have to remember that these priests were alchemists, astrologers. All of your metaphysical sciences come from Atlantis. Everything that we talk about in the schools of metaphysics, they studied all of it in Atlantis, in Atlantean mystery schools. And the teacher of these mystery schools was called the Tahuti, or the Thoth. Some people call him Thoth, which is dealing with the school of thought. And Tahuti is a being that can be channeled by multiple beings or whatever, but Tahuti is the being that taught basically the different priests, when they went through the schools or whatever, how to build these structures so that they would be able to channel the energy, the celestial energy. And there's certain materials needed, certain crystals, even certain paints that were created from going into the center of the earth and getting certain materials that we don't necessarily have here on the surface and mixing it up with these certain paints so that basically it can create a certain solution that will channel light better. So when you start studying ancient structures and how they're built, you're going to see a lot of sacred geometry. You have to get a lot into sacred geometry, studying spirals, studying dodecahedrons and tetrahedrons and all that type of stuff, because these are structures that are built with certain amount of angles so that they can channel light a certain kind of way. For instance, a structure that's built with 3 sides channels light a certain kind of way. A structure that's built with 5 sides channels light a different type of way, because it's a different structure, a different modality. So basically, these priests were builders, architects. They were all of that. Astrologers. You notice how all of this, in order to build, you start to notice how all these sciences are needed. Because now you need to learn architecture. Now you need to learn astrology so you can know how to line up things. Now you need to learn meditation and activating the Merkaba so that you can be able to channel light through your third eye, so that you don't need telescopes and instruments to align. So really, to understand Atlantis, you're understanding a deep culture that use spirituality as a science. And you hear me talk about this a lot, but that's what they were doing. They were using spirituality as a science to be able to bring time to this planet and to bring the dimensions. So each priest was given different type of structure to build, and each structure would resonate with a different dimension here on this planet. So say, for instance, the 4th dimensional energy would come from a place called Tikal in South America. This is where the 4th dimensional energy comes from, called Tikal, Tikal. And Tikal is basically a sacred site where this is where the cycles of pain come from. The 4th dimensional energies are the cycles of pain, or I guess you could say the memories of pain, are locked into Tikal. Now, what do I mean by the memories of pain? You're losing me here, Ramhotep. The memories of pain, all the pain, and which is pleasure is pain too, and all the pleasure that we experience is based on memory. And there's a code or a matrix here on this planet that are like a memory bank that holds all this information pertaining to all the fear and all the pain and stuff that humanity can experience. The potentials of pain for humanity to experience is held in a certain place here on this planet, and it's called Tikal. And Tikal is also the gateway into the 4th dimension. So you have Tikal as a gateway to the 4th dimension, but then if you go over into the Middle East, and it's a specific place in the Middle East, a specific city, and the name escapes me right now, but that's the gateway to the 5th dimension, which is where the Anunnaki came from. So when you start talking about different dimensions, you have to understand that depending on where you're at on the planet, you can resonate with a different dimension a lot easier or a lot harder. So if you're meditating in Tikal, you're resonating with 4th dimensional energies. So you can go into pain and pleasure and figuring out why certain things happen. Like, say, for instance, if you get a disease and a disease causes a certain amount of pain, you can go down to Tikal and meditate and tap into the information that that disease is providing for you, because every disease has a lesson, has information in it. It's intelligent. Each disease is intelligent. That's why they say viruses are intelligent. And you can meditate and go down into Tikal and figure out why you got this disease. Why did you attract this disease? Because everything that comes to you, you attracted it, no matter what. That's why playing the victim role is not really, it doesn't work too long, because you attract everything that comes into your life. So when you start talking about disease, all of these things are based on memories and a memory bank that, like I said, is the master, or the bank is held in Tikal. But if you go there, you can be able to free yourself from a lot of pain and pleasure a lot easier, a lot of addictions. And this is why a lot of people go down into South America to the healing centers down there to heal themselves and to get healed by the shamans down there, because that's what 4th dimensional energy grid and portal is. And there's a lot of healing that can take place, a lot of initiation that can take place. You have to be careful there too. There's a lot of archons there. And I know you wonder, why am I bringing up archons in Atlantis video? Because it's all relevant. A lot of your concepts of metaphysics and things that we talk about go back to Atlantis. And the archons were those people that studied them know that they were the people, they were those beings that got separated, permanently separated from being able to go back and forth from the underworld to the celestial sphere, and they got stuck here in this particular time and became dark entities, and they feed off your pain. The archons do. This is why they live on that portal, because they feed off your pain and they hope to bring you into enough pain. And these are sincere souls. They hope to bring a sincere soul into enough pain to where it will deny its birthright and to where it will give up. And once you give up, it can switch and jump into your body and then now go back to the higher levels and higher spheres, because now it's crossed over. It's a ritual that the archon can use to use this dark energy and this sphere to cross over. So it's pretty interesting or whatever. It could cross over into fifth dimensional energy or whatever and start to go back up to higher levels, because it's feeding off of you. It's using you as a host so they can get back its birthright, because the archon got stuck here, whether it's an entity and it uses beings and people. So you have these sacred sites, and they're all over the planet, and this created basically like a planetary networking grid. So once these sites were built, it took a lot of time. We're talking cycles of time. We're talking thousands of years to get these sacred sites to the point where they're at today, to where we have this beautiful planetary grid. But these were built in the beginning times of Atlantis. And once this grid was built, from there we began to move. We began to move civilization from center to earth, began to come slowly but surely, began to settle on the earth, on the surface of the earth, because now we had cycles of time. It was basically a way for us to live here. But in that came a lot of responsibility. Because now we were subject to new laws since we were moving onto the surface of the planet. Our lifespans decreased. We began to eat more. You heard me talk about all these things. A lot of this was based upon the fact that we were now living on the surface. Some of us became shorter when we moved to the surface. Just a lot of stuff that happened. You know what I'm saying? And this is pretty much based on the fact that we were subject to different laws. From moving into the surface or whatever, you're dealing with a different polarity, different energy. You know what I'm saying? So different beings were coming in and out. So you're dealing with polarism on the surface of the earth. You know what I'm saying? You're dealing with the masculine as well as the feminine on the surface of the earth, whereas a lot of the beings in the inner earth are androgynous, or both sexes or whatever. So a lot of duality and a lot of what we see in life, the cycles of time in general, reincarnation, and a lot of that is locked into Atlantis. It's locked into Atlantis. Now, Atlantis is very key as far as understanding the shift. Very key as far as understanding the shift, because every time we go through what's called like a planetary shift or whatever, which happens a lot, we always go back to the beginning of time, and the times of Atlantis. We always go back to that time again where we have to rebuild. There's a restructuring or a redoing of something. And we have to revisit all these sacred sites. So you notice a lot of the scientists were going around and basically going over to a lot of the sacred sites and picking up dark matter energy. Like, for instance, in South America, they had advanced equipment that was designed to be able to pick up a lot of this dark matter energy or whatever in a lot of these different places or whatever in these sacred sites, because during this shift that we are going through right now, we're basically beginning a new time. So time is starting over. So basically, during the times of Atlantis is always the beginning or the end. You're always studying, when you study about Atlantis, you're always studying the cycles of time, whether it's the end of time or whether it's the beginning of time. But that's the key to understanding Atlantis. Another key to understanding Atlantis is getting the Emerald Tablets. Very key here. These are the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti. I call him Tahuti. This is his magical name, but he's known as Thoth, but his magical name is Tahuti. And you see he's holding the tetrahedron. Very important here. Now, he's the deity of magic. He's the deity of magic. And you can't get into studying Atlantis and really understanding Atlantis if you don't understand magic. Really, if you don't even understand alchemy, which is a higher level of magic. And if you want to understand alchemy, you have to, again, go to the root of things, understand how things are made to their very source. And when you understand how things are made, you can then go within them and change them and make them into something else. And this is going into alchemy. And it's very key because Tahuti was the bringer of all of these mysteries. So when you talk about time, alchemy, astrology, all of that stuff is in this book, in the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti. Now Tahuti, he's kind of like pretty much like he's like the god of Atlantis, pretty much. And he's the god of Atlantis. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to it. Now you hear about him in Egypt, but he goes back to, he basically set up Egypt. He basically dictated how Egypt was to be built based upon the blueprints that they left in Atlantis. They left a lot of blueprints on how to create certain structures out of crystals, out of certain paints, out of certain rocks. You know what I'm saying? Out of gypsum and different materials to create magical effects. So that when you go and meditate inside of a pyramid that's painted white, made from alabaster or made from gypsum, you know what I'm saying? So that's going to give you a different effect than if you were to meditate in a regular home. You see, so basically getting into understanding Atlantis is just getting into understanding all of these different things and bringing them together. The beings that live there, the beings that came to Atlantis is something that you definitely want to understand as well. All of our beings, all of the aliens and things that I talk about, all of these things originated, it came from Atlantis. All of these things originated, it came through, I should say, the portals of Atlantis, because this is, again, like the beginning of time. I'm going to close this video down by saying this, the beginning of teaching about Atlantis. If you really want to understand Atlantis, it's like you have to look at it like the Garden of Eden. You have to look at Atlantis like the right brain aspect of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden was the left brain aspect, or the patriarchal aspect of the beginning of time. And the stories of Atlantis is the right brain aspect, or the feminine aspect. And it goes into explaining how certain things happen. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't start off with the man creating everything, saying be and this and that. It goes into how the spoken word of magic can work. Tahuti was the master of the throat chakra, the master of the spoken word, the master of magic. So he basically taught a lot of that stuff in Atlantis. He taught tone and vibration and how to chant to bring certain effects here on this planet. So to understand Atlantis, you're just understanding the feminine energy, when a time when feminine energy, or ancestral energy, which is the same thing, ruled this planet. And ancestral energy, or feminine energy, is ruling this planet again. Is basically based in a negative energy. It's based in a negative energy. So ritualistic work, magic work, all of these things are based upon this ancestral negative energy. So magic work works a lot better during times of heightened ancestral times, like during times when ancestral energy is heightened. Magic spells and rituals work a lot better. Ancestral spells, shamanistic spells work a lot better during times when the ancestral energy is heightened. So basically what I'm pointing out here is that when we go back into the beginning of time, or the end of time, and we go through this reconstruction phase, which we're in now, we're always given an opportunity to do something new. We're always given an opportunity to do something better. By studying the rays and the lights, and by traveling to different sacred sites across the planet, we're basically given this opportunity to change our reality, to free ourselves from the control grid of the matrix. And that's pretty much what you're doing. I mean, when you really like get into understanding Atlantis and magic and all that, it's to free yourself from the cycles of time, which is your prison. The reason why people are in prison, or mentally or whatever, is because of time. They feel like they're locked in a state, not realizing that time is mental. And you create your life here. And if you can learn how to exist on multi-dimensional levels here, and channel the 7 rays here, and be able to exist on multi-dimensional levels, you'll change your reality here. For instance, you can't be linear in problems. Like, you can't be linear in problems. Like, for instance, you can't say, for instance, if you're having financial problems, you can't always look at the solution is, I need to go out and get a job and make some money. You may have to be multi-dimensional. You may have to be a person that decides, okay, I got to do several things to change my financial situation. Maybe I need to take up a workout plan, so that the times where I'm wasting time and money doing X, Y, and Z, I could be working out, which is going to help me to save money. See what I'm saying? That's where you're basically going out and doing something totally unrelated to money to help you to solve your financial problems. That's being holistic versus sitting down and trying to figure out a way to work more hours and do all of that type of stuff. You can be holistic and free yourself from the whole concept of money and time by just saying, I'm going to do something else. So that's being holistic. And that's how we're going to get out of this prison that we're in or whatever, freeing yourself from the concept of money. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying money is not important, but there's ways to, you got to think outside the box of money. Okay, you might need $10,000. A person can say, okay, I need $10,000. I'm going to go get a job. Another person might say, I need $10,000. I'm going to create a plan or a blueprint to get it. That's an example of working with the teachings of Atlantis. Brief example. The teachings of metaphysics is learning how to think outside the box, learning how to work with the seven rays or the seven planets and knowing what each planet is good for, and then working with that particular planet to get out your situation. For instance, most people in astrology believe that money is more so rooted in Venus matters, but you can use Saturn to get out of money problems. You can use Jupiter to get out of money problems. You can use Venus to get out of money problems, Mercury. There's different modalities and methods that you can use to solve your problems. And the lost teachings of Atlantis basically just gives us a way to think outside the box. It gives us a way to create new opportunities for ourselves. It gives us a way to revisit the beginning parts of time, how this planet was created, so that we can recreate our life. If we understand that this planet was created by going to different sacred structures, by going to different sacred sites, by building different sacred structures, then shouldn't we revisit those sacred sites? Shouldn't each person go and try to meditate on all the different portals and energy centers on the planet? Some people say there's 7, some people say there's 13, but shouldn't we try to go visit Ireland, Tikal in South America, the Giza complex in Egypt, in India? Shouldn't we go visit the Nagaland in India? Shouldn't we visit those places so that we can broaden our horizons, so that we can begin to think outside the box? So that's going to do it for me as far as my intro on Atlantis. I'm going to do a lot of videos going more into this, because everything that I talk about, the core of it goes back to Atlantis. Star seeds, past lives, the Merkaba. You talk about all of this stuff, it all was explored, discovered, invented, whatever you want to call it, right in Atlantis. So I definitely suggest you guys get this book. Really interesting book. Again, the Emerald Tablets, one of the scriptures of Atlantis. Like each time has a scripture. Like you want to understand time, you got to start looking in sacred books too. Because each time has a sacred scripture. Like, you know, you have the Vedas. You know, you have the Numa Elish, Gilgamesh epics. You know, you have all of these different the Atrahasis. You have all these different scriptures outside of just the Bible. So a lot of times people don't understand a lot of stuff that we talk about in metaphysics, because you're locked into the Bible and you're like, I don't understand Atlantis. It's not in the Bible. They got the Garden of Eden in there, but they ain't got the teachings of Atlantis in there. That's because a lot of the teachings of the Garden of Eden came from out the teachings of Atlantis. When we were in the rainforests, when we were, you know what I'm saying, like basically living off of the feminine principle or whatever, where the woman was the tribal leader, or the Nikeba. You see, Eve was the tribal leader. Her name was not Eve. Her name was Nikeba. I mean, she's the tribal leader. She was the leader. You know what I'm saying? Which, that's going back to Atlantis too. So I know I said that Atlantis is really talking about the feminine and the Eden is talking about the masculine, but really the stories go hand in hand, because basically you're understanding, when you're looking at Atlantis, you're looking at the shift. You're pretty much understanding the shift, and sometimes the shift goes from feminine energy to masculine energy. When we go through different shifts every so many 3,000 years or so, it goes from feminine to masculine. But then there's other times when it goes to masculine to feminine. But then in this time, it's basically we're going back. So we're both sexes, so-called sexes, have to learn the lessons of their opposite. Males are learning the lessons of females. Females are learning the lessons of males. So you see a lot of same sexuality going on, which is good, because this is growth. This is growth. This is showing that we're now challenging our sexuality and going back to polarity. See, because we can't get religious with this stuff. We can't get religious with like talking about homosexuality and stuff like that. We get religious and we don't think about consciousness and life experiences. Everybody here incarnated here in this matrix to get their experiences. That's what it came down to, period. I mean, the reason why you came here is because you want to experience certain things, no matter how good or bad they were. And nobody else can judge your experiences. Don't let them do that. Because if you let them judge your experiences, you become, you basically become a victim to their experiences now. And now you're part of their experiences. But when you say, no, I'm not going to let you judge me, you keep control of your experiences and you keep control of your life. So don't let anyone judge you. You know what I'm saying? And people, when you judge people, You wrap yourselves up into their karma. You tie yourselves into their experiences. So be open minded. Think about on the metaphysical level. The Lost Teachers of Atlantis will definitely help you. The Emerald Tablets of Tahuti will definitely help you. The Deity of Magic. You definitely want to go into studying all of this information to change your reality now. So I'm going to go ahead and close down and talk about the future of Atlantis. Some people say that Atlantis is going to come out. It's going to come out the ocean or whatever. There's going to be a series of events that are going to cause Atlantis to come back. And the land, you know, like these people are talking about the actual, I guess, the capital of Atlantis, which really sunk and went into the Atlantic Ocean. They're talking about the historical aspect of Atlantis, which is the land aspect. But Atlantis, it's always going to come back. It's like going back into the beginning of time. It's always going to be a rebuilding, a reinvention. Where we want to start working with crystals again. We want to start working with spirit science again. You know what I'm saying? These are the teachings of Atlantis. They're going to always come back or whatever. So the world events that are happening, the earthquakes and all that type of stuff, all of this stuff is basically happening so that we can get back in tune with the teachings of Atlantis or whatever. And once enough minds agree that it's time for a change, then we'll start to see the land come out the ocean. We'll start to see a lot of the physical manifestations of Atlantis come back again once enough conscious beings visit these sacred sites and begin to activate these portals again. Because you have to partake in rituals and visit these sacred sites to activate these portals again. And a lot of these portals can't even be activated unless certain beings visit them. Like say for instance, me, if I haven't been to Ireland, I might have to go to Ireland. It might be a part of my experience on this planet to go to Ireland. And Ireland, the portal in Ireland might not be activated so that we can go to different dimensions and channel energy and lights and rays. That might not be activated if I don't visit there. So it's key because certain beings are key as a part of our initiation to higher levels of consciousness. So that's why it's important that you share information with other people and other beings or whatever, so that people can participate in a lot of these rituals, so that we as a whole can free this planet and shift to the next level. The whole planet can't shift unless enough beings participate. And that's what they don't tell you. Like, the planet as a whole will not shift unless enough beings participate. There will be regions of the planet that are 5D, regions of the planet that are 4D, regions of the planet that are 3D, unless enough beings accept responsibility and creativity and the fact that we create our own reality. This is what you're accepting when you accept the teachings of Atlantis. You create your own reality. You are God. That's why I started out talking about God, because you are God. And when you submit to another God, they create their reality for you, which means you're going to have to come back because you didn't get a chance to get your experiences. If you're submitting to another being that's telling you to be in a religion and telling you that the Holy Land is, for instance, they're saying that the Holy Land is a place that has no sacred energy or like no energy to really channel anything, and they're telling you that's the Holy Land, and then you submit to that, you're giving your free will over to them. You're giving your free will over to them. So basically, you're messing up your own karma, your own experiences, which means you're going to incarnate back to this place. And that's what happened. A lot of past lives, and people went through past lives in Atlantis. And a lot of people have past lives, I should say, from Atlantis now because they didn't do what they're supposed to do in Atlantis. They violated the laws of creativity, and they gave their creativity over to someone else. They filled out that little piece of paper and put it into the idea box at the job. And the job took your ideas and created and benefited from it, which created karma for you, because now you want to come back because you're upset. Now your soul's cranky because you're like, I didn't get a chance to experience X, Y, and Z. Well, if you had invented that thing and took charge of your own creativity instead of submitting to another, then you would have been able to experience the things that you were supposed to experience. So creativity is the precursor of the teachings of Atlantis. We create our own reality. So I hope this helped. I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down. I thank you guys for listening and watching. And this is my first video on the Lost Teachings of Atlantis 101. So until we meet again, I'll leave you all in peace, love, and light.